thank you to everyone for joining us today. Really excited to have Daniel with us. Just a little bit about Daniel. Daniel is a consultant and how activator at CultureCon's group. He is inspired by leaders having the courage to go first and create the clarity and connection needed to accelerate their growth as aligned leaders. He finds joy in encouraging leaders to move into alignment by unearthing the blockers they face today and building a better path forward for tomorrow together. Daniel has a background in organizational change and partners with clients during times of transformation through facilitation and leader support. He focuses on helping leaders create lasting behavior change, both for themselves and their organizations. Daniel has been a big part of the CultureCon community for a number of years now, in attending and being an active a member of the CultureCon community. So excited to welcome Daniel to the stage here, the virtual stage, and kick off the webinar.
Yeah, thanks, Zach. Let's jump into it, right? We all like to have a little fun. So why don't we start off with a fun little question, get the chat moving. We want to see as many people engaging in the chat as we can. So I'm going to be calling on you a lot. Just a human-centered question. When was the last time you did something for the first time? I know for me, the last time I did something for the first time was probably walked in a new part of Chicago. I'm exploring all the new neighborhoods in Chicago, so for me, that's a little bit easy, a little bit of a cheat answer too. But I'm curious what everyone else is thinking. Attended the CultureCon AI Summit. All right, Kate, no one else can use that one because that was the first one going out. All right, Zach's just being smart here. I love the new restaurant. That's always a good one. I really like this question because it puts us in this frame of mind of, we know that people who seek out these novel experiences, we live healthier, happier lives, right? Tried running for fun. I will promise you I will never ever do that as a first time attempt. My wife definitely would though. Joyce got a tattoo. I'm not going to ask where it is or what it's from, but I hope it's fantastic. Cambodian food, love it. That is delicious. I feel like that's a fear you almost had to get over, right? Trying something for the first time that's different to eat. I would definitely expand my palate for sure. Yeah, sorry, Lori. First comers. Going to spin class. I love it, Rachel. Well, keep those coming. We're gonna kind of dive into our work today, and we'll see where that goes. But I'll definitely take a snipe of all this and keep those out there. They're very inspiring for me. I like to try something for the first time, at least once a month, get my body moving, get my mind moving, even if that's reading a certain book for the first time as well. But today we're all here to really kind of explore alignment. So thank you so much, Culture Geeks, for jumping in. This is less of a lecture around leadership flaws. I know misalignment's the big word there, but what we're really doing in this working session is just trying to find a pattern leader and leadership teams experience all the time. And that pattern is the moment when everyone in the room agrees something matters, but nothing actually happens to move it. So we're going to give that pattern a name. We're going to use some language around it. And then we're going to walk through some small shifts that you can actually bring to your teams next week. So moving from lecture to kind of a workshop, right? Quick housekeeping. We're going to continue to review this chat. I've got Nick and Zach here as well. They are hilarious. So I'll be calling out anything that they pull through the chat as well. But these signs are best understood by trying them on, not just hearing them. I really appreciate your engagement ahead of time. So we are CultureCon's group, and I say we because there is a lot of us. And what we really do in that part of the transformation that lives in behavior change, it lives in leadership trade-offs, it lives in group dynamics. Instead of these slide decks and roadmaps, we help leaders really understand that how, that right-hand side, their how of leadership. So we help them lead together to make their most ambitious strategies come to life. So we're going to give you a tiny slice of that, but this is just one of the models in the background of our workshop today to help us pull everything together. Specifically, agenda today, we're going to define what it means by the how, what it means by alignment. I'm going to be throwing these words at you a lot. So I'd like you to have a really clear picture of that so you can pull it through the 7 signs of misalignment. Then we're going to use those 7 signs as a diagnostic. And your job here is just really listen for one or two that feel really familiar, and then how to identify these common signs of misalignment, whether they're exactly as explicitly shown or a little similar in your own teams and in plain language, so that you can take it forward and have a simple way to turn what you're seeing into a real conversation. My promise right now is just recognition. I'm not promising you're going to be a master alignment or misalignment master at the end of this. So if you could just leave with one sign you can name, one alignment statement to me would be fantastic. And I think one shift that you can bring into any of your conversations next week, for me, that's a win. That's a job well done. So just keep 111 in mind. And I think there's a subtle framing there as well. Is alignment is something that leaders do, not something that happens to them. I think that's important to keep in mind as well. So defining the how a little bit. How is not about execution. That how on the right hand side there, it almost sits in between the why and the what. It's a way that leaders make trade-offs and kind of get into the hard decisions that they have to do. It's also how they show up at work as well. So if you want to start a conversation, you understand the mission, vision, values, you understand what they have to do, those BHAGs, those strategic priorities, and then you think, well, what are we missing here? Companies tend to know that they need to do these certain things, but they don't spend a lot of energy there. They don't put a lot of resources there. And this points to that agreement alignment gap that we've been surfacing a little bit. There's a lot of enthusiasm around agreement, but there's not a lot of action pointing to that alignment. So to get us really crystal clear here, I want to jump into a quick exercise, have us engage in the chat, have us practice something that we can pull through for the rest of the day. Give me 1 second. I'm going to switch screens, which is always fun. All right. Okay. Little interactiveness. So on the left-hand side there, I have some very clear statements. We made them nice and easy. I'm going to read one out for you. And what I'd like to do through the chat is I want you to just gut punch, is this an agreement statement or is this an alignment statement? Statement one, I should exercise more often. You'll see me moving that bar around. All right, agreement on alignment. This is the part of the exercise where I start grading the chat. Okay, Joyce, alignment. Tina, agreement. I also agree. All right. We're gonna work on all having the same answer in a minute here. I would put that as an agreement statement. And then if I were to look at the rest of the statements on the left here, I'd be like, oh, what's an alignment statement? I'm just gonna give you the answer, but I'm not gonna tell you why. And that's I'm exercising twice a week with a trainer. Agreement, I should exercise more often. Alignment, I'm exercising twice a week with a trainer. If I were to just go off the cuff, right? Give me an agreement statement. I'm thinking about collaboration. We should collaborate more, right? What's the alignment statement around that? I would say something along the lines of twice a month, I pull my team together in an all hands pain points meeting. Ignore the double points, right? So that's how I'm positioning that as an alignment statement. Are there any other thoughts that are coming through right now? Like, why did I go from collaborate more to, I'm pulling my team together? Like, what's something that's changing there? Am I becoming more action oriented? Is there anything else that's showing up? Oh, we should trust each other more. I love that. Oh, I like that. Action, Kathleen. I'm going to put that down in the space between. Action. We should trust each other more. Okay. Yeah, I love that. So when I'm moving away, I'm thinking action, a little bit of specificity, a little bit more engagement, involve and set examples. Ooh, I like the set examples. All right. So right now I'm kind of hinting at that space between. What is what is the difference between agreement and alignment? It's action, it's setting examples. Yeah, it's not being vague. It's almost this like essence of accountability. What does it actually look like? So let's practice this just really quickly. If we trust each other more, what is the alignment statement there? What do we need to do to facilitate trust? Include each other in decisions. I think that's it. Christy, you hit it. I think that's it. I mean, if we need to trust each other more, we need to be more open about including everyone in more decisions. We need to be more open. We need to be more transparent. We need to define what accountability looks like. We need to define what responsibility looks like. I love that. So I'm just giving you a quick sense of what agreement is versus alignment. And now I actually want you to all to practice this yourselves. I'm going to switch screens just one more time here. All right. So hopefully you have a sense of what the difference is. If you don't, let's use that chat. I'm happy to kind of add more layers of definition on there. And again, good answers. I totally agree. Thank you, Tina. I just want to give you all 3 minutes of think time. Make this your own. Can we consider one or two agreement statements that you've heard, that you've participated in? And then just take a moment and say, how would I turn this into an alignment statement? While you're thinking about this, two filters to keep in mind. One, does it name a behavior or a trade-off? And would someone outside the room know whether you did it or not? I think if you can kind of pull both of those filters into your thinking, into your answers, I think you're starting to experience what moving from agreement to alignment actually is. All right, so 3 minutes. I'm going to go off video. I'm just going to give you a minute to think, and then I want you to stop populating in the chat. An agreement statement, and what does an alignment statement look like? Ms. Anar, I challenge you. If the agreement statement is we have a job to be done, yeah, exactly. What's a little bit more specificity to how do we get this job done? We be respectful, we increase collaboration, and we promise to cooperate with each other. Got some fast thinkers here. I'm going to give one more minute that you will type a few things into the chat, then I'll jump in. Stephanie, I saw you add something here. We need to make decisions on what is best for the company. I absolutely love that agreement statement. I bet you hear that all the time. I bet you've said that as well, right? Okay. Christy, I like how you were very specific in what is agreement and what is alignment. So agreement for you, we should work together. I'd love to work together with everyone more, right? And alignment is, yeah, that's specificity right there. Touch point, meetings. Each Monday morning, we have to engage that, make sure everyone's on the same page. Maybe it's as simple as asking, does everyone feel like their week is ready to go? What didn't we cover last week? What do we need to engage in first? What do we need to make a priority? Definitely a good one. Clear direction, right? We always like to say that again and again and again. But we do need to explain why. Why do we need clear direction? What are the gains when we're all working together a little bit better? I think what we're all doing right now is we're pointing to some of these shifts that we're seeing, right? So agreement happens when leaders like an idea or they share a desire for a defined future state. But we know that alignment happens when leaders actually redirect their current time and energy and resources to deliver on that future state. Really explicitly, I like to just share a few contrasts here. Agreement, generally like an idea. Alignment, shared understanding, and agreement with the future. I'll jump to that third one. Agreement, supportive but not willing to change priorities because it's difficult. Alignment, leaning into the difficulty there, willing to change personal and team priorities, redirect energy, understand resource a little bit more, and engage in a little bit more sharing there. I can also bring this personal as well. I love to pay for gym memberships, sometimes two at a time. And sometimes when I look at that, I go, ooh, can I be in two places at once? Probably not. The agreement is I need to go to the gym and to pull that habit into reality, right? Gym membership, get out of the house, a little bit easy to engage in, very easy to keep an old one on the contract as well. Alignment to me looks like what is a small habit I already have? Eating dinner. How can I say, let me eat dinner and then feel a little bit better right afterwards? The answer is jump in the car, go to the gym, do it 5 days a week, right? And if I'm not doing that, cancel my gym membership. I mean, that is alignment. Either engage with the membership I have or cancel it. Nice and easy to say, but I still find myself paying for two gym memberships here and there. Okay. Before I move on, I just want a show of hands. So throw those hands up. Does everyone feel like they have a good understanding of what alignment sounds like? And we can start practicing what it looks like and then what misalignment looks like as well. All right. Thanks for the thumbs up, Zach. Perfect. If not, we can always come back here. I think it's a pretty clean concept. Pretty hard to practice though, for sure. All right. Wonderful. So we're all here around the seven signs of misalignment, right? And these are deeply habituated in organizations. They may not look exactly as they're read to you, but I promise there's some form of it happening. And if not, I mean, then you're in that really category. You're doing fantastic, right? We have noticed that people don't usually choose them. These are almost inherited as well. So they land up protecting them. They land up making them the status quo. And that's the premise of today. We just want to make these visible. We want to give all of you a language to talk about this and then understand the patterns behind it. Absolutely. I'll send you not just the slides, but you'll also have a few resources as well. So we'll continue to kind of add a little substance to everything that we're talking. Good question. Love the chat so far. So consider these seven signs of misalignment signals. And as we walk through them, I don't want you to ask yourselves, man, am I guilty of this? Like, am I the reason this is happening? I just want you to ask, where's the pattern? How's it showing it up in our operating system? And how can I just make that really, really visible so that we can have a conversation on it? So we're going to have some really cool tools to score these. I'm going to share this evaluation tool with you after our webinar today. You could bring this back to your teams. You could sit down. You could do a few versions of it. You could see, oh man, if anything's red, and it's definitely happening, maybe I need to put some energy or I need to shift some resources around that as well. So we'll come back to this in a little bit. But first, the seven signs. We'll spend about a few minutes on each one of these. I want this to feel really good. I want you to have a conversation around this. I want you to understand this so that you can keep those three things in mind, right? What is the sign that feels most familiar? So why don't we launch a poll? Sign one, meeting topics are on repeat, and we have the same conversation over and over again. Another way I've seen this said is circular conversations, right? We all absolutely love those, don't we? All right, I'm going to launch a poll here. These I want to gauge. Give me a thought. How familiar does this sign feel? 0, not familiar at all. 5, oh wow, I see this all the time. Oh man, who put a 1? I wanna work with you. Sometimes you also hear the question come up like, why are we talking about this again? Or why haven't we talked about this before? Or why are we back here? Like, why do we keep coming back here? Right? I love it. Okay, so I'm going to end that. I think we've got quite a bit there. Look at that. Five. Pretty clean, right? 55% of you. I love that. For me, thinking through this is really important because you're like, well, how do you stop that conversation going too far? And I think the answer is you recognize it, right? You make a small shift. Let's think about a meeting. A shift we could change in a meeting is we just change the agenda, right? We ask a more important question. Instead of saying, what's the update? We try and say, what decision trade-off or tension are we avoiding? Could we think about how that engages us in a deeper conversation while also realistically taking up more time? Sure, it's trade-offs to everything, right? I'm going to stop that poll. We've got a few more coming up later on. I'm going to slowly walk our way through the rest of these as well. And our questions are going to be a little bit broader and broader as we go, a little bit deeper and deeper as we go. But why don't we cherry pop some of the polls up here just to get a sense of, is this real? Again, in the back of your mind, as we're going through these, try to pick one that you just really like, man, that is really prevalent, and I need to address that a little bit. I think it'll help us in activity later on. So the second signal that really shows up that we see pretty pervasively is decision rights are unclear and decisions are slow. I'm going to pop a poll up again. All right, how familiar does this signal feel? While you're answering, we know that slow decisions get almost framed as this process problem, right? But we see it as more of a risk problem. Teams get stuck because yes creates exposure and no preserves that status quo, right? So saying no is still a decision, by the way, but it can be a decision to stay exactly where you are. It doesn't really help when your circular conversations show up and everyone's just saying no, right? All right, I'm gonna share. Little less prevalent here. A little bit more fours. I like it. All right, let's engage our think brain for a moment here. If we were to think about a shift, just name a small shift that helps us get away from agreement is discussions and decisions happen outside of meetings. What does alignment look like in that regard? And I'll ask the chat to jump in here. What does alignment look like? What is an alignment statement around decision rights are unclear and decision making is slow? I have a personal one that just came through. Oh, perfect. Do what the CEO does. Yeah. Yeah. Is that an agreement or an alignment statement? A little bit of both, right, Stephanie? Maybe it's do what the CEO does and hope they explain themselves really clearly so you know what you're working on. You can put some value behind it. Thank you, Nicholas. Disagree and commit. Ooh, I like that. We talk a lot about what it looks like in a room where agreement is okay. Alignment is necessary when you walk out. That's the distinction, right? You can disagree with me, but when we walk out of this room, we have to commit. So you have the conversation of agreement and disagreement in the room, so misalignment doesn't show up outside of it. I think we should make a quote out of that. Nicholas, we're going to be quoting you. That's perfect. Great example, Kathleen. Examine and reduce repercussions of making a mistake. We see that happen all the time. I love that. Teams that can really make it okay to make smart risks, which might have small, learnable mistakes, I think really builds that psychological safety, right? That you get to create the space where people get to try things. Hmm. Sometimes we notice action often precedes clarity here, right? So sometimes you have to be quick to make the decision, even if there are mistakes that happen afterwards. And the power there is you take a step to discover and learn and adjust from when you had to make the fast decision too. So I think there's multiple ways you can go about this. All right, signal number three. The real conversation is happening before or after the meeting, not in it. Slight difference than the first and second one, right? But you can see how they're starting to connect together. You can see how you can, those one-on-ones pop up a little bit. I want to share this one. Interesting. Let's launch this poll. Very curious about this one. The real conversation is happening before or after the meeting, not in it. How familiar does this signal feel? Remember, 5 is super familiar. 1 is I don't have meetings, I guess is the answer to that one. Chandra. Okay, those are coming in. I'm going to share results. Again, nice big 5 there. All right, so there. Ooh, we're gonna have to. we might have to have 8 sign here around. Which one do we prioritize, right? Christy, I don't have meetings. I know. Who could say that, right? We all have too many meetings. All right, small shift. I like this energy around how we're thinking about this, right? Can we name the misalignment? Can we name what alignment looks or feels or sounds like? Any alignment statements you want to add to this? For me, a small shift here is when a decision lands and I've agreed to walk out of the room and be aligned, what I like to do is watch for the next 72 hours. And I want to keep hearing, is that decision being relitigated in direct messages, in side channels, in one-on-ones? Because then I know alignment didn't happen and I know we should address it again in the room. We should come into disagreement or agreement in the room first because we never got there to begin with. I'm going to add a chat to a question to the chat. This is one of my favorite ones to get everyone going. Look at that. Imagine the answers you'd get from that. What conversations are we having outside the room because we're not willing to have it inside the room, right? Which changes the orientation. Are we being uncomfortable enough? Are we asking the hard questions? So many. I hear you, Alicia. Okay. All right, let's move on. Let's think about our fourth here. Interdependency and broader impacts aren't well managed. This is certainly one of those misalignment areas that sits across an organization. I'm going to launch a poll again. How familiar does this sign feel? This one's a little interesting, right? For those of you who work in large organizations, can we be a little explicit in the chat right now? I actually want you to rate this one. So when you're thinking about this question, does it typically show up? Does it often show up? Or does it rarely show up? Use those words in the chat, and I'll also share the poll as well. I want to know if anyone actually sees the show up typically and why you're engaging in that. I notice that decisions usually set up this chain reaction with other decision, right? So everything's interconnected. There's some connected tissue there. When leaders don't connect those dots across functions, people on the receiving end can feel like leaders just don't understand. Like, you don't understand what I'm going through. You don't understand the business. We know that leaders also see it a different level of the business as well. So there's certain things that they're not making very visible, trade-offs that they're not talking about. So there's a little bit of a disconnect there, and sometimes a perfect decision makes sense, said one function, right? But also unfortunately creates friction somewhere else. Christy, I'm in a global company of about 4,000 employees. Okay, definitely. Christy, what's your answer? You see this typically, often, or rarely? Kathleen, typically, or I wouldn't red zone there. This is a hard one. We see it often. Thanks for your honesty there, Christy. I appreciate that. This is a good one. I like to get just a little granularly clear on this one because I think you can have a really good conversation around what are the mindsets I'm showing up here with, right? What group dynamics, and this is definitely group dynamics exists. Why does this keep happening? What conversations do we need to have? New CEO. Yeah, that'll definitely that'll add a different layer of complexity on it too, right? I've noticed that interdependency blindness is often that group dynamic issue, and it's not actually an information issue too. So it means you can work on it. It's going to take a lot of work. Okay. All right. Let's go to five. Let's go to five. I want you to pull here. Oh, maybe not. Says I'm already launching one. Technical difficulties always happens. We can just use the chat. No big deal. No big deal. Sign five. Everyone's status is green, but the enterprise isn't keeping up. I mean, I like to just often, right? I like to name this as everything looks green, but let's be honest, it's a little bit red, right? Or at least orange, you know? So when leaders feel like that control is slipping a little bit, when they feel strategic priorities are slipping a little bit, how in that what space, right? They really get out of that how space. They don't know how to define it because they feel like every function is fine, while shared priorities, enterprise level priorities, are certainly falling behind. 1.5s I see coming through. Yeah, exactly, right. Why are we working so hard when we're not actually meeting the shared goals that we need? None of the BHAGs are being hit, right? I To me, an honest answer is also rarely a dashboard, right? So color is not a color, sorry, green is not a color. It's not a verdict. It's a color. It's not a verdict. Apologies there. So how do you host a conversation specifically about where local successes are masking collective underperformances? So that's how we step out of it. That's how we ask alignment-driven questions. I would love to hear an alignment statement here. So if agreement statement is everyone's status is green, but we aren't keeping up, that's the misalignment area. What does a green alignment statement sound like in this area? What's action oriented? What brings us together? What gets us thinking outside of our four walls? Hmm. See a few things coming in. For me, it's how do I take a different perspective, right? Who else do I need to talk to? Ask that question. Christy, leadership checks in with each team monthly to understand their priorities. That isn't a fantastic alignment statement, I think, in this area of misalignment. That would certainly help, especially when the word leadership is everyone in leadership, right? That'd be fantastic. All right. Signal six, sign six. Stated priorities aren't adequately funded or resourced. And instead of a poll, I'll just ask you to throw in the chat. Let's be specific here. Do you typically see this? Do you often see this? Or just does this rarely kind of show up? Do you have perfect resource acquisition? Do you share everything? Can anyone ask for anything and get it? Typically. Okay. Got a lot of reds going on here. Often. Thank you, Alicia. So I sense that this is actually the easiest spot where you can spot agreement, right? The team says something is strategic, but the people, the time, the money, and the leadership attention just doesn't get there, right? And so without showing how resources are shifting, the team is going to experience the priority as a side hustle almost, you know? A small shift for me is don't just announce the priority, show the trade-off as well. So this is our priority, but here's why. Here's our thinking. Here's leadership's discussions around this, and here's why we got there, right? What did we stop? What did we slow down? What did we deprioritize? I know that is a trigger word, but what do we deprioritize to make this real? So if you can't name the trade-off, I think you're stuck in agreement there. You're not moving into alignment, right? Has anyone specifically heard of a trade-off in this area where they think leadership or yourselves even have done this well? I would love to hear something in the chat around this is the trade-off that was shared with everyone, that was verbalized, made visible, that kind of helped us understand this a little bit more, helped us understand the priority, why resources went somewhere. Stephanie, for me, folks are so overwhelmed by competing priorities, and we don't have the resources to handle everything. So folks are taking on additional tasks. Okay. Which, yeah, which then causes burnout, right? That is a clear form of an outcome of this misalignment. Yeah. Then yes, definitely make trade-offs. Absolutely, Chandra. No, and people take on more tasks, no trade-offs. Okay, so maybe the shift is we need to have a conversation about trade-offs instead of everyone just taking on more and more tasks. I would say that is stuck in agreement there when we all just take more and more tasks on. Is everyone getting a flow? Hands up if you are, of kind of these areas of misalignment right now. They're feeling very similar. I'm seeing a lot of typicals showing up as well. Not seeing too many rarelies. I'm hoping for you there. Okay, thank you. All right, let's jump into 7. Went too far there. Okay, 7. Sign 7. Accountability is limited. When accountability is a challenge, um, I usually see a lot of mindsets and group dynamics that really get in the way. And it's not a lack of caring. The group just hasn't agreed what accountability actually means, right? What does it look like? What does support look like? How can we have conversations that we're willing to engage each other in hard ways? Is feedback a thing, right? For me here, there's this element of it takes courage to start the dialogue. And I think that begs the question, what different conversations would we be having if we are holding each other accountable? Christy, Chandra, Alicia, ask answer that question for me. What different conversations would we be having if we were holding each other accountable? Leadership's favorite game is the blame game. Yeah, I like it. Uh, I find myself when I'm stuck in misalignment, when I'm only sticking to agreement, I might also kind of go to the blame game a little bit, you know? But it's when I turn that mirror on myself, when I start with myself, I think that's when I have the courage to kind of ask those hard questions. Kathleen, courage only exists when there is psychological safety. Powerful statement. Otherwise, people tend to protect themselves. Absolutely. I mean, human behavior, right? Totally. What's a small shift we can make? I'm going to add one in the chat just to get this going. For me, a small shift that I really like to promote is define accountability as a team behavior, right? So we're in a team sport, not an individual sport. Accountability doesn't look like the CFO does this. It looks like the CFO does this, and he does this through the support of X, Y, and Z. Not a personality trait, right? Chandra. The CEO, sorry, CSO, CEO doesn't want to be accountable, therefore isn't open to feedback questions. I ask the hard questions anyway. Okay, Chandra just stepping into brave here. But one-on-one before I move into the team management meeting. I think that's fantastic. You're almost like prompting, where can we go and how can we make this a safe space? And I'm not throwing this at you last minute, right? I have given you a moment to think about it, to show up however your individual differences support into a meeting where I think we can have a really good dialogue. Accountability is character-based. Leave your ego at home. Stephanie, if only we could all do that, right? It's a good practice. It's a good practice. Um, hmm. Lori, review successes and try to figure out how we got to success and apply to challenge. I think you can also do the reversed as well, right? Review failures and how do we apply not getting in those failures again to our challenges. You can do both on one hand. I love that. Not that kind of hits at several of the spots of misalignment too, right? So these are all interconnected. They all revolve around each other. I think you're all making this yourself as much as you can. I would like to just go into another think time moment and start thinking about when I do send you the alignment evaluation tool, Could you sit down and have an honest conversation about you and your team, or the team below you, or the team above you, and mark typically, often, rarely for each one of these areas and what that would look like? So for a few minutes here, and I'll turn off my camera to really give you some space here. I just want you to think about each of these statements, and hopefully they're clear enough on my board right here. I'll also try to drop um, the attachment in the chat right now, even though I have promised to give it to you afterwards, just in case you want to have a little fun there. Start to think about this for yourself in your teams. Is this something I rarely experience, something I sometimes experience, or something I typically experience? Think about it. You and your teams. 3 minutes. Go. Come back on video. I'm between sometimes and typically. All right, Stephanie, since we're kind of moving away from presentation mode, right? Diagnosis mode. You have that in the chat. You can always download that. Could you pick one? Which one is the most painful for you and your team? Don't overthink it. Just go with a pattern you're really recognizing. Star that, because I think you need to have a conversation about that. I hope while you're working through this, you're starting to see that even though we're scoring these, that's less the point. The point is, what conversation do I need to now make possible, right? So before we all go, I prompted Stephanie to star one. I'd like a few individuals to just add to the chat. Number one, thank you, Stephanie. Exactly what Stephanie did. What's your top sign? What's the one you really need to have a conversation on? And then how do you need to actually make that happen? What does that actually sound like in your team? So, Stephanie, if meeting topics are on repeat, we have the same conversations over and over again, what does that actually look like in your team? And I'm going to go up and see if you actually answered this already. Hmm. Okay, here we need to make decisions on what is best for the company. All right, Stephanie, throw it in. Give me an answer. What does it actually look like in your team? Alicia, number three. Yeah, a lot of discussions happening on those one-on-ones, right? Not happening in the meeting. How does that show up specifically for you, Alicia? Stephanie, the team interprets the priorities differently or jumps into action without thinking through the implications. Ooh, I love that. Because that's almost like I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm action oriented. I'm alignment oriented, right? But maybe I'm only alignment to myself. I haven't thought about everyone else. And maybe there's a little bit of that number four interdependencies and broader impacts aren't well managed from an individual mindset standpoint. Maybe there's something the team can do to push everyone there. Alicia, thank you for giving a little clarity in your number three. No one is saying what they mean until later. And then we spend so much time saying it, we don't get any work done. Man, a little circular conversation going on there too, right? And certainly not any progress. Okay. I love that. Hard to love. So part of practicing being in alignment is having an alignment statement you can say out loud. So we're just building that muscle because if you can say it out loud, you can get into a conversation with it. You can use the language of agreement to alignment, Alicia, to say, hey, I don't see any progress here. I think we're all spending too much time saying it, but I don't think we're doing enough work to get it done. What could this look like as a collective so that we get more work done, we do a little faster, we make a little progress, everyone still speaks their mind, right? You're getting it away from you and me defensiveness chatting, right? Exactly. Thanks for adding some clarity. Kathleen, number four, I just want to read this one because I love it. That's the interdependencies, right? How do we get out of silos? So siloed approach to work and decision making. The action is invite others into the conversation. Kathleen, who are you going to invite in the conversation? I need a name. And you don't have to share it in the chat. You can just say it out loud. In the next 2 weeks, and I want you to hold yourself. Build a little habit tracker. Hold yourself to that. I have a name. I love it. Yes. Yes. Don't share the name. I want you to invite them in conversation in the next 30 days. That's how we move in alignment right here. Speaking of which, I think there's a way we can all take this forward. So I'm going to make sure everyone gets a copy of the Have Leadership. Julie Williams from the CultureCon printed those out. Absolutely fantastic reads, but you'll have a digital version as well. Use that as a 5-minute pre-read in the next meeting. Throw this on, see if it prompts anything, see if you can already change the progress and the position of the meeting that's going. Two, just run an agreement to alignment exercise around one real priority or one thing that you're noticing. Just do one. Just do one in the next 30 days. Um, Kathleen's got a great example of what agreement to alignment exercise for herself is, right? I know someone that I want to have a conversation with and bring them in the next meeting. And then three, again, you'll receive all these materials after this. It's just complete the alignment evaluation tool as a team. Try not to do it just by yourself. Do it as a team. I think that really is where you're going to have a lot of conversations. It's going to move a little bit away from the theory into the more how do we make this real. And the bigger idea as well behind a lot of this is change management is what people do. And I think that's where we're a little different. We're just trying to push you to how do you inspire others how do you inspire others in terms of how they lead? And that's leader activation, right? Small shifts done consistently over time change everything. So try to make those small shifts happen. Start with a really good conversation. Think about one area of misalignment that you want to bring into your workplace. Have a conversation about it. Think about one agreement to alignment statement you want to explore a little bit better and start practicing these as much as you can. We're going to put these in an email. Make sure you get everything and continue to come back to it. But I appreciate all your focus today. There's an accelerator QR code up there. It's for our Alignment Accelerator. Well, if you're curious about it, send me an email, daniel.raffeld@carrickensgroup.com. I'd love to offer you a little discount. It's something we're doing where you're kind of understanding the tools and the skills you need to be an aligned leader. Love to have a conversation around that. Consider joining any of us. Every Carrickens team member here is in service of making how matter. Those are our 3 ways to stay connected. Appreciate all the engagement. I'm going to save the chat. I think there was some gold here. We're going to see what happens next time. Okay. So as I'm leaving you, 2 thoughts. The first is we talked a lot about making this real today. So make it real next week. Engage with the tools. And the second is this was a poem our managing director shared at CultureCon last week. It was courage doesn't always roll. Sometimes it quietly says, I will try again tomorrow. So thank you all. Appreciate it. Mahalo, Daniel. Great information. Thank you, Jan.
Thank you so much, Daniel. And thank you to everyone in the chat. This was probably one of the most engaged bunches we've had on a webinar. So really appreciate everyone's participation. And yeah, feel free to connect with Daniel. Him and Kerrigan's group have so much valuable insights on these topics. I'm sure they'd love to chat more. But yeah, thank you again, Daniel. And thanks to everyone for tuning in. We'll see you next time.